I've got the spores, the sickness, there's the twins in my brain.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Domestique Cycling Podcast, where today I am joined by fellow domestic Ethan to review all of the action from a brilliant Tour de France. First of all, how are you, Ethan?
Very good, Bram. It's been a very, very grueling Tour de France, I think, for everyone. Entertaining. I know you very entertained by Remco, so yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, we're recording this a couple of days after the tour finished already. If you started feeling a little bit recovered from the tour?
I don't think I've recovered yet, really, because every single stage in that third week was just go from the off and doing the lives as well. It was great fun. I loved doing them from start to finish, the lives, because you just got to interact with everyone.
Yeah, for sure. I remember today seeing the post from the Vuelta account saying 25 days till the Vuelta, and I'm like, I'm not ready. I need to recover from this tour.
I mean, I've been watching Tour of Wallonia, and then also coming up in the week we have Olympics, time trial, and then road race coming up. So yeah, the cycling doesn't stop, does it, really?
No, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Let's just start reviewing this Tour de France, and let's start off small. And did the tour live up to your expectations?
I think it even went above and beyond my expectations, really, with what we've seen throughout the stages. Pogacar's dominance is what strikes me the most. People call it boring and stuff like that, accusing him of all sorts, don't they? But yeah, Pogacar, that performance is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably the greatest ever performance we've seen on in a cycling race. It's mind-boggling, unbelievable to some, however you want to interpret that word. But honestly, I didn't expect such a fight. Of course, Pogacar was basically untouchable, but there was still that sense of suspense in a way up until the last week, I feel.
Yeah.
Especially with Jonas coming back on that stage.
That was a big swing. That was a big swing, wasn't it? Everyone was thinking that Jonas is now going to come back and win.
Exactly, like Pogacar attacking, Vingegaard closing the gap, which was like a minute or something. And then beating Pog in a sprint, like, okay, we have a race, nice. Of course, in the third week, kind of all fell apart, and Vingegaard faded quite considerably. But yeah, it's.
Would you say he faded though? Because I think Pogacar just reached levels that he's not reached before.
I think there was a limit on Vingegaard's recovery in between stages, with fatigue as well. We also see that with Remco being able to, stay with Jonas for longer, even riding away from them once. So you could also say that
even the
Remco got
little
better,
moments as well. I'd say as well, the little moments in the Tour de France. Like the crazy stuff that was going on in that race. We had, I think, the funniest thing, like the little moment, was Jonas Abrahamsen and Coulthard pulling up at the side of the road on the Torino stage. Over that Torino stage, that was the only boring stage in my opinion. Genuinely.
Yeah, you're right. Like that was just a snooze fest. And all the rest has been bangers. Like you could just watch them from start to finish. There was no way. The last sprint stage was also because it took so long for a break to go, and then only one guy.
Yeah, that was a thing you want.
I can't remember what stage that was.
All in the roundabouts in at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Sprint stages. I think the race organizer or the parkour builder was already talking about we need to rethink sprint stages on how to make them more exciting or more enticing for attackers. I'm curious how they're going to do that. Do you have any ideas?
Put bumps in the road near the end, I guess, like hills. And like that's the only thing you can really do, I say, really.
Or maybe hills at the start of a stage, so there's actually
Yeah.
terrain where breakaways can kind of get formed.
Yeah, so you need at least a launch pad at the start for a breakaway, don't you?
For sure. So for the first time in years, we have a new white jersey. Because of course Tadej Pogacar is now too old to wear the white jersey, which is still something so crazy to say and realize that he's no longer qualified for the white jersey classification. And we have a new one, and it's Remco. He was one of the favorites for that jersey, of course, but for a lot of people, not the main favorite. I think a lot of people kind of expected Carlos Rodriguez to take it. But I think Remco's performance really solidified his place as, okay, he's a GC rider. He can do 3 weeks Grand Tour, no problem, especially after the doubts, of course, from last year from the Vuelta. What do you think about like his race?
Excellent, really. He really cemented himself as as we say GC rider and shut a lot of people up, I must say, because the many people were writing him off, saying his Vuelta win was a fluke and stuff like that. You was a number one believer in him, Scott, so I must say there. But yeah, Carlos Rodriguez, he was obviously the favorite, but he definitely disappointed, like many of the Ineos team. I'm sure Jim Radcliffe is going to be looking at that team and probably, I don't know what they're going to do, really, to be fair. What do you think Ineos can do?
At this point, very little. I think they're setting up a development team. I think that's going to be really important. But yeah, I think with the riders they have right now, they need to have a good long think about if they actually have a rider that can win the Tour de France. For me right now, that's a no. Even though Pidcock might say that he can.
Never.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. If you look at the level of Pog, Vingegaard, or even Remco, he's nowhere near it. Of course, we didn't really get to see that this year because of illness. And I do think that the Ineos team was struck by illness very deeply in this Tour de France. But still, with that budget, you have to do more. And yeah, it's just not happening. Like
going back to Remco, yeah. I want to go back there. Do you think he can win a Tour de France in the coming years? I think, my opinion, the parkour has to be perfect, doesn't it? Like 2 TTs maybe.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I do think he can win one, and the parkour does need to suit him a little bit more. Put in a 40K flatter TT, and he'll put quite a bit of time into the other guys. But I think even Pog said it himself in an interview afterwards. He sees Remco as having a chance at winning a Tour de France, maybe even next year or in 2 years. Because of just, well, a lot of people were surprised. I don't really understand that. But that's just my bias in being a Remco fan. But yeah, I see him winning one. And to be fair, like this tour was probably actually kind of unsuited for him.
Yeah. I think
so. Due to the parkour, due to a lot of, like, for example, Isola 2000, that stage, that was one where you would say he's gonna crack. But in the end, well, he lost some time on Pogacar and Vingegaard, but not to a degree where you would say, okay, he's just gone for 30 minutes. No, he's matured in that way as well.
Yeah, he's definitely matured, and you really notice that this year. I think that's the number one takeaway of Remco, I think, as well. He's also much more likable as a person, I think, as well. Because obviously, and that's maybe why people also kind of disrespected his ability a little bit, I think, as well. And because, yeah, his like younger self was a bit of a, what do you say, dickhead kind of thing, really.
I mean, there's still some stuff that he does that you would say, do you really need to be doing that? But in the end, he's very impulsive still. There was that, for example, that little hand movement towards Ben Healy, I think in the third stage, where Carapaz took yellow for a day. Those are some of those things that he doesn't need to be doing. But in the end, he's just, he lives off of impulse a little bit. And in his interviews as well, like he's saying a lot more his own mind, which I really appreciate in a rider. And you see that with Pogacar also a little bit. Although Pogacar is more media trained, he's a little bit more careful. But guys who speak their mind, they have a place in cycling, and honestly, they're what makes the sport interesting as well. That you have something to talk about afterwards. Like, sure,
you don't want the robots, do you? You want proper personalities. We've seen that on in his quote the other stage. What stage was it? I posted it and I was like, I've seen her. I was like, I know that quote's gonna go off and people are gonna bookmark it and stuff like that.
The gravel stage, or
No, the one afterwards where he said, he can beat me, I can beat him, in like those words.
Right.
Yeah.
Where he said, today Jonas drops me, but maybe tomorrow I drop him. We'll see, and it's racing. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he's not wrong in saying that. But people find it a little bit disrespectful. But in the end, like, they're part of a bike race, let them race. So yeah, we've talked about the white jersey a little bit. Let's maybe swap the conversation to the KOM jersey. Of course, this year won by Richard Carapaz. For second year in a row, it's actually not the top GC men that win it, which I really like. Yeah. But for the majority of the second part of the race, it was owned by the GC men, and only really by a pretty strong effort from Carapaz he was able to take in that last week. Do you think the competition needs to change to be
I think
more
it needs
relevant?
to change. I think I've seen one guy on Twitter, I can't remember specifically who said it, but he said the guy who takes the summit first the most as to get the KOM jersey. As like, I think it was something like that. I can't remember.
I haven't seen that.
But yeah, other than that, the first 2 weeks of Abramson, they were legendary, really, I think, as well, because he was just going all in for the points and giving a show for the fans. And yeah, when there's like a non-GC, I mean, that GC guy going for it, you seen Jonas, he wasn't all in for it, was he? He didn't have the polka dot helmet as well, so yeah.
Oh yeah, I think for him it was more of a I don't want to be wearing this. Yeah, you could just see that from the kit he was wearing. He was just wearing the shirt, nothing else. He also, I think also for him getting rid of it was a bonus.
Yeah.
Because then, for example, he didn't have to do the TT in a different suit. He could wear his own suit. I think that was pretty important for him as well. But of course, I think Carapaz did deserve to take the KOM. I think he did all the work needed for it, especially in that third week. And I think it was quite obvious from the start that the KOM battle would be decided in the third week.
Yeah, he was just going all out attacks, all out, literally, in that third week. And yeah, EF as a whole, that was their main aim, really, I think, as well. Stage win and also the KOM.
Yeah, and they did it perfectly. Of course, attacking that third week kind of leads us into the combativity prize, which is a little bit controversial because, of course, Carapaz wins it as well. But a lot of people are not happy with that. I think I know where your position on this is.
No, it doesn't make any sense, does it? Because it's a super combativity of the whole entire tour. Yeah. Carapaz, fair enough, the third week, but then Abramson, first week, second week, even third week, going into like all the ball breakaways, attacking, second place, just literally anything you can do. And then Carapaz does that in the third week and gets a super combativity. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. They do this public voting thing where you have to retweet.
What's the point of it?
Yeah, I mean, Abrahamsen wins that, so he wins the public combativity prize. But you have Carapaz already winning KOM. He's won a stage. Do you really need to put him on the podium again in Nice for another award, or do you give it to one of the smaller teams that has really given some spice to this race by attacking so much? And to be fair, Abrahamsen's also spent the most kilometers in front of the peloton out of anyone. I think he did 30 kilometers more than Carapaz in breakaways. Of course, the terrain was different, so maybe the time, like Carapaz spent more time in front of the peloton. But I think it was Abrahamsen's.
AJ as well. You had him on within solo for literally I don't know how many kilometers it was, but it was a lot, wasn't it? On stage 8. But yeah, as well, don't you also get 20,000 euros if you win the super combativity?
Something like that. It's
You'd be imagine if he was Abrahamsen, you'd be pissed off. But he's.
It would go to the team, I think.
It would go to the team. You'd be pissed off. But Abrahamsen is a nice guy, obviously. On his social media, you've seen him congratulating Carapaz. So yeah.
Yeah, he's a bigger person than me in many
bigger
ways.
Person, yeah.
We've done 3 jerseys in the competitivity. That leaves the green jersey. And we also have yellow, of course, but we'll talk about that. The green jersey going to Eritrea. Huge moment for cycling, especially in Africa, of course, but I think all over the world. This is going to have a huge impact, I think. What do you?
Yeah, I definitely believe that as well. You see the scenes in Eritrea, it is crazy, isn't it? And I think the influence that's going to have on all those kids, boys and girls, just to start cycling or even push further to get into professional cycling. And I think there need to be like more investment and stuff in places around there. And then who knows what talent's out there? It's the same for any sport really in the countries like that.
Definitely. I do think there needs to be, I've seen this as well from, I think the UCI, that there does need to be some help from manufacturers to be able to make some more affordable options, because as we all know, as cyclists, the sport is becoming more and more expensive to start in as well. And in developing countries, that is definitely a barrier to entry to the sport, and I think that's a real shame. Because of course, to be able to discover those talents, they need to start riding their bikes.
I think that's the biggest problem, isn't it? Really, with regards to that, I think is the cost. That's genuinely.
In the end, it was quite a close battle for the green jersey between Girmay and Philipsen. Yet I think it kind of comes down to Philipsen's relegation, you could say. It's a bit of a shame to have the green jersey battle decided by that. They both won 3 stages. Girmay crashed once. Philipsen was caught behind a crash once, I believe.
Just caught behind one. Literally, I think he missed it by about 2 bikes.
Yeah. So in the end, the difference is made by the relegation. But yeah, I think it's such a beautiful thing for cycling that Girmay takes this.
A complete surprise as well, really, I think as well. Because did anyone predict Girmay green? Probably not.
No, even in the preview, I said it's going to be a problem.
I said Tyson was a sprinter, but...
Yeah, but they would get in each other's way. And actually, just the reason why Girmay was even allowed to go for green or whatever
Because
is
of that
because
sprint,
he's won that first sprint stage.
Yeah.
If he had not done that, then okay, all the others, the more flat sprints would be contested by Tyson and not by Girmay. So, you know, that's a huge impact to his chances. But yeah, kudos. All right, then we move on to the yellow jersey. Do you see anyone challenging Pogacar if he keeps producing these insane numbers?
No, I don't think. Have we even seen the peak of him? That's what I think.
That's a question I have as well.
I don't think we've ever seen the peak of him. Not yet, anyway. You see that, obviously. You see that silly Twitter account on
No, let's not.
I know,
no.
he's so he's just reading it. It's so funny. But people should not believe it, but it is. The way he talks is quite funny.
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah, just the numbers, and like I don't understand how he does it.
I think we also need to see this in context of doing these numbers after doing the Giro-Tour double.
Exactly, yeah.
In the last climbing stage is still knocking out like insane records. I think on all significant climbs in this tour, the climbing records have been broken in like the time records, always by minutes. It's just I don't even have words for it. I was gonna say unbelievable, but that's a dangerous word to use these days. It's this amazing era in cycling.
It's crazy, and then you get sad people always on social media, don't you, accusing and things like that. It's gonna happen. It's obviously cycling at its past, and people have the right to question it. But yeah, it still is very frustrating when you see performances like that and just people hating. Really, I think.
Yeah, we definitely see it in our replies of like to our tweets. I think a quarter of replies are
just syringe emojis and things like that.
Yeah, it's honestly a real shame that people can't enjoy watching the sport that they love, or I don't know if they love it. Without those thoughts, I think you just have to, I think Pogacar said it as well after the end of stage 21. Like, why would he take drugs? Like, that would be terrible for his health. He wouldn't never do anything that would endanger his health. Although you could say that descending a mountain at 100 kilometers per hour is also a bit risky for your health. But it would be stupid for him to do so. If it ever turned out that Pogacar or Vingegaard doped, then our sport is done. Like, all credibility of the sport disappears. And I think Pogacar respects the sports way too much for that.
Exactly, yeah, that's the thing. And then there's also one thing that annoys them. People say Pogacar winning all the time is boring. And then people expected him to give wins away. Like, that's the analogy on Eurosport was, I can't remember which commentator said it, maybe Sean Kelly. If you give the striker in football a chance to score, he's going to score. And then just calling it boring is just mind-blowing, really. Would they rather Team Skytrain all the way up to the finish and just drop them off and say, yeah, there's your win? Or attack from far out? It's much better seeing it from far out.
Exactly. Like, I wouldn't understand a stage win gift if it's like a teammate, because you could make that analogy with, for example, football. Like a striker could pass the ball to his teammate to let him score if they, for example, already scored 3 goals that match. Sure, let someone else also have a goal. But if it's a different team, and I think the main criticism comes up after the stage with Jorgensen, where Jorgensen got caught. I don't remember how far it was from the line. But yeah, should Pogacar be giving stages to Visma? Like,
no, and it's like the same thing with Vingegaard as well on stage 20. People were expecting him to give Vingegaard the win or something. I imagine that would be a bit demoralizing and a bit like taking the piss a bit if you're giving your rival your win. It's like rubbing basically your balls in his face.
Yeah, I actually think that giving a stage win could also be just super disrespectful because you're saying, oh, I let him win. I don't need this win. Where for a lot of people, a stage win is, the crowning moment of their career. Like Kampenaar said it in his post-race interview. It's the best moment of his career. He won't do anything better. And then you have potentially Pogacar saying, oh, I don't need this. You can have it. Like, that's also a massive disrespect as well.
Yeah.
If you want to win a stage, like you have to do it on your own merit. Don't expect gifts from anyone.
Yeah, and if he's chasing Cavendish's record, so yeah.
Oh yeah, it's actually a little funny where Cav, right after breaking the record and getting a 35th win, and Pogacar goes to congratulate him, he grabs his face and he says, "Don't beat it." And Pogacar said, "No, I won't." But then at the end of this tour, Pogacar's on 17 wins. He's halfway there.
I don't know. If someone could make it like an estimate of when he beats it, I don't know if he could beat it. There's a lot of factors that have to go right, though, don't they, as well? And some super talent doesn't come through or something like that.
Yeah, but Cav got his 35 on 15 participations, which is a lot. Pogacar got 17 on 4 participations while not being a sprinter.
Yeah, but doesn't climbing like your peak of your abilities comes earlier, and then you can't last as long as a sprinter?
Yeah, but give it another 4 or 5 years, that record's going to get smashed.
Yeah, but I think so.
I mean, there's no way that Pogacar ends his career, like unless he ends it when he's 30 or something. But if he just does a regular career, retiring around 34, that record's going to get broken.
You could even get 18 by the start of stage 2, really. I think if the opening is, it's in the around Lille, isn't it? So does that include any cobbles? I haven't seen.
I don't think that's been announced yet, but
If they announce, I imagine they're going to do cobbles or something like that.
I think that's a terrible idea to do cobbles on the first stage
they'll
of the
do
tour.
something like that. Imagine that stage 3 or something like that. They'll do some cobbles.
Throw it in first stage.
And then everyone will be moaning as hell.
Yeah, I mean we'll have gravel stage revisited.
I think, yeah.
Of course, we also had the abandon of Primož Roglič. For the start of the tour, there was a lot of talk about the big four, with, of course, the podium that we have, plus Roglič. Do you think that will still be sort of the language going forward, the big four?
This is a tricky slope, I think, here as well. A Roglič is a big four. In terms of a Tour de France, I don't think, in my opinion, he's never going to have the chance to win the Tour de France because the level of riders that are already at the top is out of his reach, I'd say. And also, I think there's going to be too many upcoming talents coming through as well who are going to be better. The Vuelta, if he's going to the Vuelta, isn't he? Does he win the Vuelta?
It's not confirmed yet.
Well, but if he is going to the Vuelta, I don't know if he could win it. I think, is Almeida going to the Vuelta? I've seen rumors of that.
I think
if Almeida goes to the Vuelta, I think if I was a betting man, I would pick Almeida over Roglič.
Landa's going to the Vuelta as well.
Landa as well. Landa's form in the Tour there was very, very good.
Yeah.
Big four. It's not a big four anymore, in my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts are as well. Big three.
I think for the Tour going forward, I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to talk big two, but Remco's not that far off. and I do think he still has some margin to improve. I don't know how big that margin is, but to be fair, every year, like if you compare to last year or the year before, today has also improved massively. Just the sheer numbers that they're doing, it would seem impossible 2 years ago. So there's still massive levels of growth happening, even though Tadej is 25 now, Jonas is 27, and they're still growing. So it's insane.
Yes, yeah, and then Roglic is over.
I do have that fear as well. And it's just, another crash. Either he has massive amounts of bad luck, which I personally don't believe, or there's just something else going on. I think the crash that took him out of the Tour this time is entirely the team's fault.
Yeah, that's a team's fault.
Yeah, some people are blaming the Astana rider. I forgot who it was. Was it Lutsenko?
Lutsenko, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Some people blame him for not looking at the or like crashing into the obstacle. But a GC team of one of the big four that sits third or fourth row. That's where the crashes can happen. He shouldn't have been there. It's his own fault.
They need to take things from a page out of the book of Ineos, where you see Ineos, we've seen in the Giro as well, where Ineos was always at the front of the peloton, staying out of danger. And that's what you need to do, just stay out of danger, simple. And for Roglic as well, they need to keep him out of danger.
Yeah, it's actually sometimes crazy to see Ineos still do that as well at the Tour, while they're sitting 5th, 6th, or 7th position in GC. But they're still at the front. They're still demanding that space at the front, saying, we're going to sit here and keep our leaders safe. While a team like Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe doesn't. And they do have the rulers to do that. They brought Dens, Haller. They need to be able to hold them at the front. So yeah, it's just, no. I think it's there will be no Tour de France victory on the Palmares of Primož by the time he retires.
And also, I don't know if the team staff believe it as well. From what I read a bit, they don't seem to have the belief, do they?
There was that interview afterwards where I think it was Rolf Denk who, or in their podcast, that they need to look into young talents to win the Tour de France. Like if you say something like, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't have the exact quote. But if you say something like that right after your 35 or 34-year-old leader has just crashed out of the Tour, I think that it's implying something, that they're looking for the next thing. And then there's a lot of rumors about Remco going to Red Bull, which I think is bullshit. Because why would he? Did Red Bull do anything good this Tour?
No. They should have. We've seen on the domestic account yesterday, Mayos winning stage 1 of Wallonia. So yeah, generally, if they took him, would they have won a stage? Possibly,
I mean, it's an option. Like if Cav wins a stage, Mayos can probably also win a stage.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But it's impossible to say with sprinters being very close in level these days. Like I think on the sprinters field, level was super close.
It was insane. And also, we had Van der Poel and Philipsen. They were off a bit in the first week as well. So yeah, the chance was there.
Definitely. Yeah, I wouldn't see why Remco would go to Red Bull. There's nothing better there than compared to Soudal.
Money.
Yeah, but I think it would actually reduce his chance of winning the Tour.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could just splash the cash a bit on some domestiques. A bit.
Yeah, but like looking at what Soudal's doing by, for example, bringing in Landa, that's just already enough. Like,
Exactly, yeah.
I don't think there was a point during this race where you like, oh, Remco would really need some help right now.
And for
'Cause
next season anyway, Red Bull are basically building a classic super team, aren't they? So why would he go?
yeah, exactly. But yeah. Um, what was actually your favorite moment of this Tour de
Specific.
France?
Obviously, I have to say three. I can't pick one. Cavendish is a win, obviously, as a Brit. Girmay win as it was completely out of the blue. Pooh. And then say a moment of Abrahamson in the polka dot jersey as a Unix fan was beautiful to see because the recognition he got was crazy.
Definitely. I think just he's on
She was
everyone's radar now. Um, everyone now knows who
everyone
Jonas
knows, yeah.
Abrahamsen is.
I've seen the blog analytics, yeah, and oh my, the stuff of the Google search is crazy of how many people are searching for Abrahamson. So yeah, but what's your favorite moment or moments?
I think it has to be the Cav win.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, even before the Tour, if I had to say, okay, if Cav wins his 35th, it's going to be the moment of the Tour.
Hmm.
No matter else what happens. It's just, that's an astonishing record. And maybe it'll get broken in a year or five. But still, well, he shared the record with Merckx before, but actually taking a record away from Eddie Merckx, that's a pretty nice thing to do.
It's crazy, isn't it? And it's like on that stage where everyone everything like lined up perfectly, didn't it? And then all the other stages, he was just all the other sprint stages, he was just relaxing, chilling.
Yeah, I think it all just kind of clicked. I do think he is now. Is he still gonna do any more races, or is he just calling it? I think
I
he's
don't know,
calling
but
it.
I seen his interview after as soon as he finished the time trial, yeah. And he said Matt Stevens asked him, are you all done with cycling? And it was like he gently paused some in and I thought he said he's gonna stay another year or something like that. It generally looked like it at first, but if Stoner doing the Tour of Britain, if Stoner's doing the Tour of Britain, I hope he does the Tour of Britain. That'll be cool to see as one last.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that would be nice.
that'll be nice to
Like
see him race right near my house. It'll be sick.
all right. I think in the notes that we prepared, well, that you prepared mainly, you also
Mm.
had a top 10 for Derek G. Um, is that, well, to be fair, that was way out of my expectations.
Yeah, I think
Um,
we all heard the brainwashing from Dieter, and the belief really from Dieter and Derek G, and then Dieter turned me into that belief as well. Just it's crazy. We've seen the stat, obviously. What was the stat on the cycling graph we've seen today? Derek G, 27 minutes, 21 down to Pogacar. And probably his current version would have won every Sky Tour era by 10 plus minutes minimum or close to that. Like what?
I think that just talks about the level that cycling is at these days, compared to back then. To be fair, I didn't experience that era to be that slow or whatever. Um, but it's also a very different style of racing than back then. It was a lot more SkyTrain, just up a mountain and then attack by the leader in the last 2Ks. You're not gonna set two big like climbing records with that tactic.
And also, yeah, gee, I don't know. You didn't really notice around the Israel Premier Tech riders around him in like the mountains, did you really? He was by himself a lot of the time. Yeah,
Uh,
Fulsang was in
Full
some.
song, yeah.
Fulsang was there or thereabouts. Fulsang had some pretty okay form for what the past year and a bit has
Yeah,
been from.
for Full Song's
Yeah,
level in the past years, then yeah, it was good. But still, it's not something you would want someone fighting for GC, and I do think he had a chance to land even higher.
Yeah, definitely. If they invested in just one or two more climbers for G there, and I think would they now go down the route of GC for G going forward?
That's the thing, right? Like, does he go for a top 5 next year, or does he do what Carapaz did this year and go for polka dots? Because I think if he tries to go for that, he has a really good shot at winning it. We know what he can do in breakaways. We've seen that at the Giro last year, but I don't see him fighting for the win in GC, obviously.
No.
Gonna see him land top 5 if he applies himself. I mean, if he really applies himself to become more of a climber, then yes. But it's one of those, like, is it worth it for is it worth fighting for a top 10 in GC, or could you pick your moments and do different things? I think that's also something you just see in the rest of the peloton, where you do have these guys who can finish top 10 but are choosing to fight different battles and going for stages or KOM.
There's also another guy I want to mention, with Steph Kras. After his horror injuries, that result he got in GC is crazy. I think he finished around 15th.
Yeah, something around there. I actually don't have the results open, but I
think it was 15th. I'm sure it was.
It's so easy to forget how significant his injuries were. There was so much talk about Jonas's recovery, which is honestly also insane. But when you think about Kras, I think he was off his bike for longer, and like broken vertebra and just scary stuff. Although Jonas's injuries were also plenty scary. To see him do this well with such little preparation is just awe-inspiring.
And those energies rode a great race as well as our team, really, as well. You had Turgis, Bashir, second place on the Campeonato stage, wasn't it? So yeah, and I don't know if you wrote them off in the preview podcast, but yeah.
I think we did, yeah. I think after the first week review, I already said, if any teams are listening and they want us to jinx their team for the Vuelta, just write in. We won't talk about their team, and they're gonna definitely win a stage, because that's seemingly how it works these days. Because last year we did that with Cofidis, this year we did that with Total Energy. So if you don't want us to talk about you, you might win a stage.
And the Cofidis for the Giro as well, Benjamin Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. Although I do think we talked about them in the Giro preview, but might be wrong.
Sure, you said they were going to be doing nothing.
I mean, what do you expect from Cofidis? To be fair, we should have said that about Cofidis at this Tour de France, because in this Tour de France they didn't do anything.
Well, nothing. You mean Coquard is obviously long gone, isn't he, really? In terms of being able to compete. Zingler, I would have liked to see Axel Zingler get a better result on like stage 8, for example. I can't remember when he finished in there.
I don't recall. It's just, you have what's his name now? Guillaume Martin, like in the press saying today, he wasn't riding with a power meter because his bike's already too heavy. I mean, that says it all, and then the team responds, this bike has won stages in multiple Grand Tours. It's fine. And we have the first Frenchman in GC at the Tour. Yeah, that's 13th place. Is that really what you want to be flexing with? That's just wild. And I do think it's very clear that Guillaume Martin is leaving that team next year.
And then you also had the pre-Tour de France shenanigans with Zingler as well, or Zangler. where they were basically saying you have to win the French jersey, otherwise you are not racing the Tour de France. So yeah. But
Yeah.
then he did race.
French teams are going to French team. Sorry about that. We had 12 different stage winners, mainly with Pogacar, Philipsen, and Girmay winning multiple stages, of course. But breakaways only really succeeded on one mountain stage. We did, of course, have Turchi and Vauquelin as well. How is that going to evolve, you think, in the next years? Are we going to see more domination from the GC guys with even more stage wins, or are breakaways again going to be given the chance?
I think with the numbers that those two aliens producing, I think no one can come close to them, can they? So, and the way they're riding as well, they just literally is brutal, really, for people who are riding in like for breakaways. Speaking to Johannes, he just obviously understands that they're just too good. And then Tobias Johannesson, I think, did an interview about Pogacar after the stage saying you can't hate him, he's just too good.
I mean, that's definitely true. I do think there's a part of it where, they can choose to make the stages a little bit easier, like the GC teams, because right now there's just a lot of control from the GC teams to keep the break within arm's reach. Although sometimes I would think that if you start with 3.5 minutes on the final climb, that's not with it. That should be fine to be able to get there, but then Pogacar just rides 4 minutes. Takes 4 minutes, but there's also just that change where there's multiple GC teams controlling some days. Like most of it is done by UAE, of course, but then you have one day where UAE says we're not going to control today. Okay, then Visma takes over and they're going to control today to put pressure on Pogacar that day. Okay, which leads to the breakaway getting caught and Pogacar winning the stage. The next day, you have, again, UAE saying, we're not going to control today. Breakaway can win. Then you have Soudal controlling the stage and catching the breakaway, and Pogacar wins. So I think it's also a result of that. There's just this drive for control over the peloton and putting hurt into Pogacar. That I think is just backfiring. They need to rethink the tactic.
I don't know if they can. I don't know what the way is to actually beat Pogacar. Obviously, I'm not a DS. I'm on PCM, but yeah, to beat him, I don't know what the hell they're gonna have to do. They have to try something that's extreme, really, aren't they?
Yeah. If we had the answers, we'd obviously be working at Visma or Soudal right now. Yeah. But I think they need to go back to the drawing board because the ways they've tried it in the past to make it difficult for him both times, like it doesn't work anymore.
Like the Vingegaard, was it on Plateau de Dubai? When he was literally just dragging Pogacar all the way up, and literally just dragging him, and it was just. I mean, you have to try, don't you, at times, but.
Yeah, but with the shape that Pogacar was in this tour, it's not going to work.
Yeah, at least if you go into the gamble, you have to gamble and go all in the casino and play your chips, don't you? And that's basically what he did, I guess.
Yeah. But I think at this point, or this year, Pogacar was just in a league of his own. You couldn't even say it's just the big one because the level of dominance is too big for the other two to bridge. Any final thoughts on this Tour de France?
No, I just want to say Nils Pollitt. Oh my God, he's crazy.
He's definitely become a certain sudden mountain domestique. I kind of got It was Van Aert vibes from him.
Yeah.
But to be fair, in the first week, he was kind of nowhere. Same with Wellens. And I do think Wellens struggled in this Tour de France. I saw him very little. But pull it in that last week, just insane. Even like was it on Bonnet?
Yeah.
That's
pulling there, like, what the? And Nils Pollitt, for Nils Pollitt, I just, what?
Yeah, I don't get it. All right. I'll close off today's Domestique Cycling Podcast, and big thanks to our audience, of course. If you enjoyed the episode, consider supporting us on Ko-Fi or on X, and if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It really helps us out. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you next time for what is probably going to be the Olympics preview. See you then. Bye-bye.
See you then. Bye-bye.
I've got the spots, the sickness. There's the twins in my brain.